Okay, I'm back. Evidently, thank goodness, all I needed was another hour nap and a bite to eat. I feel a little bit better. This is the third segment of this interview. I can't believe I'm taking this many segments. I'm sorry. Bill had asked, for those of you who don't know, my name is Vincent Faney, and I have been planning for years, trying to be a community builder. All my life I wanted to be a community builder. I've always wanted to be wealthy and just be part of the power elite, but one of those who just want to be giving, because I'm not a person who needs a lot of material things. I'm not a materialist. I'm more an experientialist. And so basically we're talking about this goal, and I've been getting interviewed. This is the third segment of this interview on how my goal and my plan, how I'm going to raise money, how I like to raise money to purchase some repos or other houses, properties, to help get affordable housing for veterans, disabled veterans, and even other people in diminished incomes. So my goal is to basically have it to where people are paying like at least half of what they would be paying now if they were renting or getting a mortgage. I'd like to get the banks and the government out of the loop. So the question, my last question that Bill asked and I answered it was like, basically he wanted to know, when I was going through my stuff, they were basically talking my integrity. And so I had to lay down some groundwork as to what I was going through so I could go further on and say, how do I prove my integrity? So I had to give a history of what I was going through, some pretty bad stuff. And part of that was some bad stuff and neglect from my union. I have no fear of talking about my union this way of libel or slander. Everything I could talk about, I could document, and I invite them to come forward and to basically confront me on this if they think that they can do so. So Bill had asked, let's see, I got to reread it because I can't remember it. He said, Vince, do you mean that the union refused to represent you? Asked if isn't that illegal? And I told him, yes, it is illegal if they didn't represent me. But the thing is they did the minimal required by law, which is outrageous because they put together a poorly constructed grievance, and they kind of lollygagged around and advised us not to do an EEO right off the start and all that shit, and that got us in some trouble. And I got to say one thing about the union. Later on, when some other people came in with a similar situation, they also, even after they found out their mistake, the same people actually told somebody else not to do an EEO, that you had to wait like 15 years or 10 years. You got to wait until the grievance is taken care of one way or another before you could have the option of doing an EEO. Or they said you couldn't do both, which is bullshit. And it's almost like it was intentional that what they're doing, or their incompetence and stupidity is monstrous at best. Okay, and it really bothers me how they really went out of the way to protect people who would not show up to work at all, who would get drunk and so forth, spend far more time trying to keep these people's jobs than to simply protect us. Anyway, that's for another interview. I don't want to get too much on that. And during my time that I was laying down and out, Douglas typed up a couple questions from what it looks like. So let me see. He said, you've gone through a lot of bad circumstances. It's understandable where your motivation comes from. Thanks, Douglas. But how are people that you are trying to convince to jump on board with you supposed to know that you are a man of integrity and someone that will follow through with your goals? Evidently, this is what they've been asking me for the past 3 questions, and I haven't answered to their satisfaction. And the thing is that I'm trying to basically show how do you know somebody has integrity? I mean, if I don't lie or do so, if I know that there's no consequences for stepping up, that there's no possible harm that's going to be done to me for stepping up, and I step up, in my mind, that doesn't necessarily mean that I have integrity. It doesn't mean I don't have integrity, but it's easy to step up and be truthful and put yourself on the line when you know there's not going to be any bad repercussions. What I've been doing is laying the groundwork to show the history that despite repercussions that I was facing, the adversities, I think I could demonstrate that I stepped up. So basically, there's a whole bunch of examples that I could show, such as how I've achieved my goals. But, for instance, when you have goals is part of integrity. When you have goals, you want to make sure, and he's asking me if I'm going to follow through with my goals. So that's kind of the same thing, integrity and, showing that I followed through. But I want to, I don't just say I have goals and I'm going to do this and that. I've achieved everything I've ever set out to do in my life, with the exception of 2 goals. And I have other goals still. I'm still going to go forward. And I expect, unless I die, like I said, I'm a little bit worried. My health is diminished and so forth. And so, but unless I die or something drastic happens, I'm going to give it the old college try, more than most people you would know. So he's just typed up another question. Hold on a sec. I would wear these glasses all the time. I'm not taking them off for vanity. It's just that they're so blurry when I'm looking out into the room. They're only good for reading. Douglas is asking, can you share with us what those 2 exceptions are? Yeah, I can. It's kind of hard for me to talk about because it's a very, very painful subject for me right here. It's very, very painful. The only 2 goals I haven't made yet that really haunt me are I have not been able to bring certain people to justice for the part that they played intentionally, in my opinion. I think I could prove that to your satisfaction or anybody's satisfaction, for their part in the unnecessary death of a few of my friends and coworkers. And as I said, my life isn't over, so the jury's still out. I think there's still hope with that. Hopefully you guys out there can, if once you see the evidence that I bring forward, hopefully you guys will be able to use your voice, maybe write letters, make phone calls, send emails, and help me with this. Because what has happened is truly criminal. Okay? And like I said, this example, well, it really haunts me because, like I said, my whole thing that's been important my whole life is to protect my friends and my coworkers, my friends and family. And again, I know that weighs on me because I felt like I didn't get the type of protection and care that I think people should be given to each other. I've been out in the world and I have seen people who've networked and really been there for each other, stand up, and it's a superior way to live. It's simply anybody who's has a circle of friends or family like that are truly blessed. All right, and like I said, I was unable to win the fight to protect my good friend Tom Jennings from dying. Tom suffered unnecessarily from chronic lung infections, and the reason why I say unnecessarily is they forbade him from wearing a respirator. The respirators, which the post office used to hand out to some of the maintenance people when they were working in some areas where the dust is really kicking up, they would demand it. But because some of these people the supervisors did not like some individuals that needed it, they decided to use this as a way to punish these people, to make them sick and hope that they quit or die. Now, they didn't feel this way about Tom, but there were 2 other people that were dreadfully disliked by the management. And we got caught up in the melee. So, like I said, I believe the death of some of these people, especially Tom, is the reason why I suffer from pretty bad sleep disorder. I'm not a person prone to nightmares, and I would call the dreams I have of Tom as nightmares. He just comes up in my dreams, and like I said, a very good friend of mine, and some of my coworkers who I had affection for also, and even some of the ones I didn't really overly like, but it was just horrible to watch them suffer. It's horrible for me to suffer, quite frankly, and so. The dreadful suffering I went through made me more empathetic to what everybody around me was going through. So except for those 2 exceptions, I've reached all my other goals, So, yes, I am a person that will follow through. I see that he's typing up something. Okay, Douglas wants to know, could you share with us what some of the goals that you achieved are? I didn't. Um, well, a lot of things, a lot of goals. Let's see, where do I start? Well, one major goal that I've had since I was a kid, actually since I was a teenager. I mean, even started during the kid when I watched the Steve Reeve movies, but I had a fantasy that of being a world-class strength athlete, like a strongman, you know. I wasn't very athletic. Even before I became really athletic, I was half blind and a little spastic, I suppose. My lacked hand and eye coordination, so I figure, you know, it would be nice to be strong. So, you know, eventually I did. I reached a world class level of strength that was once thought impossible for a man my age. Because I reached that level when I was in my 30s, my late 30s, which is past the prime of, considered to be well past the prime of a strength athlete. And I did this without the use of steroids. And quite frankly, you know, that was a pretty good deal. And another lifelong goal that I attained far beyond what I thought I would do as a kid, but not as far as I wanted to or could have, was to become wealthy. And I did that basically because I wanted to be a community builder. I knew that people who had wealth can take care of their family and their friends. They have more resources. Again, it wasn't so I could have a yacht or anything like that, or to live like my dad. It was simply to have the resources to be able to care for my mother. I couldn't care for her when I was a kid, and I used to hear her cry to relatives and so forth, how she worried about how she was going to feed us and so forth. And it broke my heart. It made me feel guilty, and the anguish I felt that I was not able to help her bear the load. And I always swore to myself that I would be, when I became rich, I would be there and house her and give her money and make sure that she was okay as she got older. And I wanted to be there for my friends. Oh, hold it. I think he's typing something else. Let's see. I can't see it. Ah. What are you saying? I'm sorry, you guys. I've lost his questions. This messenger is really messing up on me. Oh, okay. Here we go. Yeah. No. It just blurped out. It was the same. It was the same. No. Okay. We're fine. Yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to be a community builder. You know, and I saw that people who are millionaires, like my one godfather, you know, he was always giving to charity and helping with community events and so forth and so on. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be there for my friends. And, you know, the truth is that despite everything I was going through, you know, when I had rentals, I knew that you bought something at a good deal and then you got something. I was able to rent at lower than market rents. I collected a lot less than what the market would have allowed me to collect. And I did that with single mothers with kids specifically because, well, that was my way of repairing my past by proxy. My mother was single, kids. She had a tough time. I felt like that by proxy I could kind of make some reparations to my soul or whatever, to the universe. And so I would charge far less rent. And on Christmas, around the month of December, I'd say, look, don't worry about paying rent. Use that money to buy your kids necessary items. And by the way, would you like a turkey or a ham? Now, I wish I could have done more. I couldn't, but I was always looking in the eye in the future to become that wealthy. I know that when my friends were living at home with their parents because they're in a poor job situation in Pennsylvania, I had 10 friends, 5 male friends, 5 female friends, that I was like trying to get them to move out here to Oregon. I had all these properties, and I said, look, you know, I could put you up. You can look for work. If you can't find a job, you have a place to live. I got stores of food. And I was confident that between us, we could have those resources and talents, combined talents, become some amazing community builders. I felt we'd be unbeatable. And, when I worked at the post office, there were so many people I approached, people who complained about hating their job and wishing they could be rich and be out of there. And I approached them and said, look, I got these houses. If you were to go with one house per year with me, one house per year, no more than that, just that money that you spent on some frivolous thing, if you were to help put in that money and put a down payment with me, and then in the year I would give you half your money back and you would be half owner of a house, and we did that one per year in 20 years, you would be rich, I'd be rich. Now, all the people that when they came back to me, that finally several years later when it's too late and I was embroiled in this lawsuit, got involved, just those people, not all the people that I asked, I'd be worth a couple $100 million. And if I had stopped at the point when I first got in trouble with the lawsuit, and then I just, then that got resolved right away. And if I had not invested in any other properties, I could have pocketed 200 or 2 million when the market was at a bubble, right before the bubble burst, and had one house paid off and one rental paid off. But I was just overwhelmed. So basically, what I'm telling you sounds like bullshit or sounds too good to be true. But later on, I could show you on a chalkboard exactly the mechanics of it, and it's like simple math. It's not. You don't have to be Warren Buffett to understand it. I know there's a lot of you out there who understand it now. So, a lot of people think that to get that rich, you'd have to commit fraud, but that's just not true. Now, like I said, another goal was I reached a certain educational goals. I was very embarrassed and felt really terrible and insecure about being a high school dropout. And my math skills, when I was in 8th grade, I took an aptitude test. My math skills were like a 3rd grader. I was a prolific reader, and I had high comprehension with reading. But when it came to writing, my writing skills was like see the dog run. Now, I got my GED in the service, and later I got 200 college credit hours. These are my, I forget what they call those, my electives. These are electives. I have all those and then some, so I could just finish up on some of my rest of the science and math courses up to calculus. And then I'm going to go a year at the university, and I'll have my degree in science, a bachelor's in science with a minor in math, which is something because I was once barely at a 3rd grade level in math, and now I'm doing trig, and I'll have a confidence I'll do calculus. And I'm old, my brain doesn't work as well as it used to, but unless my health takes a more of a downward spiral, I'm confident that I will get through it. So that's a goal. And like I said, my writing skill is like see the dog run. My friend Phoenix, who's a great writer, and some other people who are writers, helped me from going from that skill level, which is next to nothing, from having run-on sentences and unlinear thinking on just a very unlinear streams of consciousness. I didn't realize that punctuation was what it was used for, really. I was just very uneducated. And they taught me a lot to write, and I've worked many hundreds and thousands of hours on my own, picking up writing skills. And so eventually I wrote several books, all of which are like published, or they're copyrighted, and the manuals, the books themselves, the prototypes are in the Library of Congress right now. So my very first book was not even a story about my life, any story of childhood or anything like that, but it was a 600-page, very comprehensive, large workout manual talking about every aspect of working out, nutrition, meditation, visualization, various workout protocols, some mathematics of power and force and so forth. And I spent 6 years doing this. The first year or two I spent just writing what I knew. Over the years, turned out I knew a lot more than I thought I did. And then the next year I spent researching if other people felt this had the same theories or what their theories were. And so it was like me being very, taking their information and being critical of their information. I had the audacity to critique their thoughts. And sometimes they helped me to clarify some of my beliefs, and I give them credit for it. And in this, I used the method. I used this book to gather information about mind-body stuff with some very influential, famous people like Ram Dass and Dr. Rupert Sheldrake and Stanislav Grof and Dan Millman and Charles Tart, Robert Frazier, and a bunch of people. Frank Zane, Dave Draper, bodybuilder. They donated pictures for the book because they liked what they saw. And these people, Joseph Chilton Pierce, the guy who wrote The Crack in the Cosmic Egg, I got permission to refer to their material, how it refers to my material. So it was a great experience. And yeah, it's one of my proudest achievements because I also brought up protocols that I figured out, that I formulated 20 years. Well, I wrote the book about 20 years ago. Back in 1996, I started writing it. But a lot of these thoughts I had for 10, 15 years prior to that. And so now at the colleges, they're teaching this stuff they used to think were harebrained and bullshit. Now they're teaching it like it's cutting edge stuff that I knew. So I'm very proud of that. It's an achievement that, quite frankly, it might sound like bullshit, but once again, it's documented, the copyright and so forth. So, I have that. I like that. And I knew a lot of one things I'm very proud of is I recognized from my persistence and my viewing and studying a lot of workout patterns and so forth, various training protocols that enable me to see why so many people fail and get seduced into taking steroids, and only why a few people reach world-class level. And this allowed me to develop methods of training where which practically any healthy person could reach world-class level of performance without the use of anabolic steroids. Even people such as myself with the average genetics. I see Douglas is typing something, goes, Vince, is all of this explained in your 600-page manual? Can we talk about this right now? Actually, this is something that I would rather talk about in more detail later. I want to focus on the other questions more relevant to pursuing my dream about this raising money for housing. And yeah, Douglas, it is outlined. Everything is outlined in this manual. And so aside from this manual, I've achieved a few other goals. One thing, talking to Dr. Philip Zimbardo, the guy who was head of the Stanford Prison Study years ago, the Stanford Prison Study Experiment. He wrote the book Lucifer Effect. Very famous guy. You see him on TED Talks. I corresponded with him on the internet several times over the years, and via his cell phone, his iPhone, and my computer. And we talked about a lot of things, and he talked about his experiments in shyness, what he's learned, papers and abstracts on shyness. I was a very shy kid. I had trouble speaking up in class and speaking teacher in front of other people. I was just a loner as a kid, a bookworm. I didn't really have any friends until I went to Upper Merion, until 8th grade. I really didn't have one friend. And I was just a quiet kid, just hung up on myself and collected bugs and snakes and read. So, and I had trouble talking to girls too. I really, I didn't like girls until I reached puberty. Then I really liked them, and I had trouble, very shy around them. And so, I was really motivated to not be shy now, then. And so I determined that I would eventually fake it until I make it and not be shy. I forced myself to interact with people. And which is really weird because anybody who knows me today would tell you that I'm the kind of person that's the furthest from being shy of anybody they know. And again, my first obstacle that I dealt with before I could talk to girls was to hang out with guys in the weight room at Upper Merion. And then I wrestled, and then I got to know people, and I got popular, and of course I looked old enough to go get beer in the bars, and I'd be guys who'd supply some of my other classmates with beer. And, so I became popular that way, and I got to talking to girls and became a little bit girl crazy, so overcame that obstacle, now I'm so chatty, as you could tell. I sometimes have to remember that there are usually two sides to a conversation. Another thing I got over was my fear and loathing about trying to be a salesperson, selling products and services. I mean, when I was a kid, I went door to door and asked if I could mow lawns and do stuff for money. But to work for someone else and try to sell their hair products or their fire, their security alarms, or their, stuff like that. I had a hard time doing it. Okay. And even when I had the gym, I had easy time talking to people, training them. Had a lot of fun in the gym. I wrote a book about that year of the gym. That was a wonderful year. I had trouble selling my services as a trainer, going outside of the into the public and promoting my gym and promoting myself. And so I had to get over that. And despite hating sales, hating it, cold calling or whatever, when I was forced out of the post office, I managed to land a job down in Southern Oregon with Harry and David, the fruit basket company. And I thought that the job, it was during Christmas, I needed money badly, and I thought and I wanted to finally get back to work. I missed being in work. And I decided, well, I'm going to be just simply filling out orders. People call up and say, do this. And I go, yes, and just click into order. But what I was required to do is I was required to talk to the people and find out what they wanted, do cross sales and upsells. And of course, I was terrible at it. And of course, in inbound, you have to keep your talk time down. It was just terrible. I just stumbled and it was bad. So what they did is they said, okay, look, you're inadequate in inbound. We're going to send you to outbound, where we will allow you to have your talk time higher, but you got to really sell to these people. You got to make sure our expectations will be higher. So I still stumbled, and I did poorly. And at the end of the season, they liked me because they knew I liked working there. They knew I was conscientious. I didn't complain like a lot of the other workers. And the next thing you know is they said, okay, unfortunately, you're not good enough, and come back next Christmas, instead of keeping me over for, throughout the year for the various other holidays. Well, some of the people they were going to hire had other opportunities, and that left a niche open. They said, look, we could give you another chance, but you better really get better a lot quicker. And, and I did. I worked at it. So I did things that the unions would fight against, which the reason why companies don't like this, they could get in trouble, is I would go into a separate room with, that was during the day, or a different time of the day, between seasons, empty. They'd be filled up during the certain programs, or I forget what they call them, campaigns. And I would go in these rooms and use the computers and sneak on the computer and look at the different order forms and various different screens. Because part of the thing is, I had my bad vision. Even with glasses, I had trouble looking at stuff. And if I could study everything and know where everything was ahead of time, I could anticipate where my eyes should go, and then I could remember and study and make everything flow. And eventually I went from being the worst salesperson to many quarters being their top sales, at least the top 3. I remember 2 quarters I came in number 1. That was real thrilling. And it was kind of addicting. And I had a lot of fun. I didn't get paid big wages, but I got nice bonuses. So I'm very proud of that. That's a goal I've worked on. It doesn't seem like much, but I achieved 1, getting over my hatred of sales, and 2, going from being the worst to the best. And not just with sales at Harry and David, because they have great products and they have money back guarantee, but when I worked at other telemarketing gigs and businesses where my job was to convince professionals such as doctors and lawyers and engineers and accountants and HR people, a variety of scientist people who have degrees and creds, who have very little patience with some schlock calling up as a telemarketer, trying to tell them what they need. You need this HEPA law manual or some bullshit like that. So I did pretty well at that. Now, another thing, just another goal, getting back to my lackluster ability as an athlete as a kid, I just was spastic, and I was just blind, and nobody wanted me on their team. That's one reason why I was shy and I didn't hang out with kids, is because I couldn't do the things that a lot of boys wanted. I wasn't like nobody wanted me on their team, all right? And in fact, I kid with people and I say, hey, they would often use me as a handicap. We'll take Paris Hilton if you take Vince off our hands. Okay, so it was just terrible. And my mother and my father were really besides him, my father was ashamed of me. He was just totally ashamed, because I was not the athlete he hoped that would spring from his loins. And my mother, she's just concerned that I wouldn't be able to socialize and interact with kids. So, she was pretty upset about it. My dad was a gifted athlete. My son, he was hoping his sons would be that way. My brother, who was 3.5 years younger than me, had freakish O.J. Simpson type of coordination right from the womb. Here I was clumsy. But eventually I decided I would build myself up and do everything I could to become a good athlete. And if not at sports that I needed good vision, like baseball or whatever, then at wrestling or martial arts or, weightlifting, gymnastics. So I really worked hard at those, and I did really well. And I dare say that if I had put in the same amount of time and effort that I put in the weight training, that I could have been a world-class level performance. And I think that speaks not to my skill or innate talent, but the willingness of putting the time in to follow through. We're talking about following through on goals. I think anybody who puts that kind of time in can achieve mastery. It's nothing special for me. But again, I'm saying, this shows that I'm willing to put in the time despite, fears and anxiety of failure in front of other people and so forth. So there's that. So anyways, when I was working for the Postal Service, here's another goal, I was working, and this is something I'm still working on, of attaining, get the right myself. I wasn't content to wait for 15 years where people were dying for the union to finally do something. I wasn't content to simply wait around for my lawyer to go through filing motions, So I decided I would fight for our right to wear, the legal right to wear a respirator. Everybody told me that I was crazy. My lawyer, my co-workers, my business partners, my family, my friends, the union, everybody said I was nuts. Okay? And they just said, I'm just going to have to hold on and wait till the courts to decide. I had a lot of ideas. I thought, I shared these ideas with my friends. I said, I'll get the media involved. We'll go to the legislators. We'll do this. And I went to Peter DeFazio, Ron White, and all these people. Smith, I forget this. I forget his first name, but he was a congressman or senator way back when. I was going to take it to the streets. Everybody said I was crazy, right? And the union, from the local level, the officers, all the way up to the national level. And in fact, I tried to get all the locals involved across the nation, and quite frankly, my national union found out about it, and they blocked my emails from all their locals around the country. And I know this because AT&T told me that my national union at a national level put a block. So, and I have that on record. I'm not afraid of being charged with slander or anything like that. So something was going on. Anyways, my initial dealings with the media and legislators kind of like confirmed my co-workers' allegations. Okay, so I was eventually forced out of work. I'm living in my truck. Nobody wants to hire me. Who wants to hire somebody who's willing to have a lawsuit against their employer? I'm just at my wit's end, losing money, selling off properties just to survive. I got my mother who's needs a place to live. She's dying of Alzheimer's. I got my fiance. It was just a mess. And then eventually I decided to go to Washington, D.C. and canvass the Senate and the House of Representatives. And I went to every senator's office with a one-page letter stating what was going on. And I was going to call the media, but this is shortly after 9/11, and I was afraid, oh shit, I'm going to get arrested as a terrorist or something like that. It looked like a militarized zone down in Washington, D.C., but I went through the Senate, went to every office. I was getting all these calls. Nobody would sit except from Orrin Hatch's office identified themselves, but all these other people wouldn't identify themselves. And by the time I go to the House of Representatives, by the end of the day, the two security guards at one of the lobby entrances said, no, you're the guy we've been getting calls about. We can't let you in here with those letters. And so I snuck in the next day in a different entrance, and there's different security guards, and I had the letters not in the box but in my backpack. And I got through a third of the House of Representatives before 3 Capitol Hill police came in, escorted me to a private room, took my ID, ran a check on me, said, well, we can't let you wander around the halls. You can go, but you are not allowed to take those letters to any of the legislators, which is against the law, but that's what they did. So anyways, but that kind of put pressure, and I got myself back working at the Post, because I was getting admin leave for that 1 year. I was out of work, not getting anything. And then I got admin leave. I forced them to give me admin leave. And they said that I would be able to probably would have been able to get admin leave until I retired. But the thing is that I was worried that my friends are still back there struggling and dying. And what they were doing wasn't right. And I wasn't content just to collect money and not work. And I wasn't content to stand by while my friends are suffering. So anyways, I put pressure on them to bring me back to work, and they would put me on some other satellite office, and then I was still having problems, and I forced the legislators and them to bring me back. And things were going at a point to where it was bad. And at the time I was forced out of work when I had to be home to help with my mother, who was dying of Alzheimer's. The lawsuit was being held here in Eugene, Oregon, and Judge Hogan said that the Postal Service had broken the law, that they were in the wrong, that the only reason why he couldn't give us any satisfaction and rule in our favor is he claimed that we were a little bit untimely, which is really to be contested, which my lawyer contested. And then the fact is that he said that if the post office continued to do this, then we should file as soon as possible and be timely, and he would likely rule in our favor and be able to give us what we needed or whatever. I knew I wouldn't live long enough for another lawsuit. I just wouldn't live long enough, and neither did Tom. Tom died. And Tom died not from the cancer that was killing him. He had a rare genetic cancer, and all he wanted to do was live long enough to support his family. I remember Tom saying, he was very Christian. He said, I just hope that God will allow me to live long enough, because he was forced out of the service. He had the cancer and was laid out on the table for like 8, 10, 12 hours. His whole throat ripped open, part of his vocal cords they had to take out, all this stuff. And it was a cancer that would attack every endocrine gland in his body eventually. In 7 years, he had 5 operations, this gland taken out, that gland taken out, and so forth. Then he had to have hormone replacement, all sorts of medications. So he suffered. And so the infections he got from the lung infections exacerbated his physical condition. And he just hoped that he could live long enough to support his family, to send his kids through college, and to walk down the aisle so he could be there when they got married. He never got a chance to see them get out of halfway through high school. He died shortly after from a lung infection, not cancer, after the first trial. Now, we went to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and it was what a sham. In hindsight, I was impressed with my lawyer then. In hindsight, after all sorts of things, not very impressed with him for a couple reasons. Then he talked about how he'd file a petition en banc to all 40 of the judges in the Ninth Circuit Court. And then a week before it was scheduled to be there, because they give you 90 days to do this, but a week before it was due, he decided to drop out. First, he told all my friends and the other litigants, like, well, it's a lot of money. Tom died, so that's more money you guys are going to have to spend. Then my one friend, who was also one co-litigant, forced out into retirement because it was exacerbating his MS, and he nearly died from his MS being exacerbated, and so he was forced into Social Security disability, but it took like a year or so to kick in. He wasn't getting any money, nearly lost his house, had to dip into what little retirement funds he had, and so he said he didn't have money. And I was saying, look, just take my house, take my motorcycle, take all my possessions, keep that. Just keep going. Let's get this out there. I don't expect to win. I just expect this to get out, so this doesn't happen to anybody else, so another Tom doesn't die unnecessarily. I wasn't expecting any big windfall. I was just saying, let's keep going and take this to the Supreme Court and so forth. Well, then, basically, I kind of said, okay, we'll do it. If Larry's doesn't have the money and Tom's there and the other guy says I can't do it, and then I thought, well. And then I called him back up and said, no, I want to go forward. I'll sign over the title to some of my properties, anything you want. And initially when we talked, he said, oh, I'll stand by you guys and I'll make sure that the news gets out. See, that's what I believe. I believe that if the news got out, that it would save us. It would save Tom. And at the very least, it would ensure that other people wouldn't be forced in this sort of situation. And this is what the union was always trying to get us to do anyways. They were saying, geez, we hope you guys are forced into a lawsuit. Because then all the bullshit that happens will come out, and we'll be able to talk about it, and with your help and with this publicity, we will be able to get things done and make for a better postal service. And they refused to go to our legislators. They refused to write DeFazio or anybody. They refused. They wanted to keep quiet. We were used as a political football. That pisses me off. Tom was used as a political football. So anyways, my lawyer dropped out, and I said, look, I could still file, can I? And he's like, well, you're not a lawyer. What you got to draw up would be, it would take a lawyer to draw up the proper petition in a proper format. I was like, well, maybe you could give me some templates or some idea. Show me some other en banc forms that you have done in the past. So he sent me something called the Plight of the Flycatcher in the Klamath Basin. And I stressed out, and I put together this petition night and day. My computer was seemingly always on the fritz, crashing. Finally, I got it on a file which I could save, and I rushed down on the bus to San Francisco. I went to a Kinko's, spent a shitload of money to get it all printed out, and I printed out 40-some en banc petitions and got it down to the clerk just in time that day, the very last 15 minutes before they close, so I would have it would be done and filed timely. Of course, the judges ruled in favor of the first Ninth Circuit Court decision in Judge Hogan. And then my only option was to file to the United States Supreme Court, which is done in a different format, everything different, size of the booklet, everything. And I filed to the Supreme Court. And when my lawyers and other lawyers look at both the en banc and the writ of certiorari to the United States Supreme Court, they thought a lawyer did it. They were impressed. I don't know if they should be, because I'm not impressed with them, but they were impressed, and I had to file with the Supreme Court 3 times. The clerk at the Supreme Court said, look, we need a typewriter Roman 14 size times Roman 14 font. The computer generated 14 font is slightly different. And so they tossed it out on that, and I had another 90 days to refile. And then they tossed it out because the margins were in like a millimeter. It was just bullshit. And in the end, they said I was untimely. I couldn't get it done, and that's not true either, but I just got wrung out. But there's something I saw through. That's a goal that I think very few people on the planet would actually spend that much time doing and putting it together. All right? Another battle of shyness is I'm willing right now to speak to you on camera. Brad Pitt and George Clooney said that they couldn't be my face. I'm not very photogenic. My voice sounds like I'm the love child of Sylvester Stallone and Pee Wee Herman. So I couldn't get James Earl Jones to be my voice. I couldn't get Brad Pitt or George Clooney to be my face. I couldn't get Christopher Hitchens to articulate for me in the most pleasant manner my arguments. It's just me. And I'm, quite frankly, pretty damn uncomfortable with it. Recently, I've been performing comedy, trying to get my, it's good therapy, and I've been putting my comedy on DVDs, and the comedy of other people who want to donate, and quite frankly, that's kind of harsh, because I'm not good looking. I don't have youth and beauty anymore. I don't sing. I don't dance. I can't play an instrument. It's just my snappy patter and my sexual charisma getting me through. And, sometimes my timing's off, or the audience is kind of out of kilt and they came to hear music and not a comic. I had to deal with hecklers and a hostile crowd, and that's a challenge. I enjoy it. It's a challenge. I'm going to keep going. Another goal I'm going through. Right now, I've been blackballed from getting a job for years because people once they find out that through Google when I give them my information of who I am and the lawsuit I've been through. It's very tough to get hired. So right now I've been doing personal consultations and personal training, where that's not such a big deal. Anyways, I'm winding down and I have to get some more sleep. And I know Bill's just wrote a question. Let me read the question. Let me get on my glasses so I can read it. But Bill, I don't know if I don't want to answer it. Okay. Okay. Bill says, that's quite a list of obstacles you've overcome. It can be argued that there is no shortage of unethical, ruthless people that have also overcome many obstacles. People like Hitler and Madoff. Okay, what can you present to the public in general that you are still, despite, yes, that you are a man of ethical character, a man that can be distrusted? Well, yes, okay. Sure, there are a lot of people who've overcome great obstacles in their life and have really ripped off the public and done some terrible things. But this is going to take up quite a bit of your time. And, I don't know, Bill, I want to lay down for a bit. Are you going to be up for this? Well, Bill says, I'm up for it. And his question is, how can we be certain that you're a man of integrity? Okay, Bill, Douglas, can I lay down for a bit? And we'll pick up on this, all right? Yes, that will be fine. Okay. My friends on Facebook, I hope that you guys go through each of these interviews. It's a long, basically, from what I could see, I brought up and talked about several subjects that of themselves, like the weightlifting, like the union, like the lawsuit, like the shit that we've gone through, are each their own interviews and should be dealt with separately. I can't believe we went off on this tangent. All I wanted to do is just say, these are my goals. I have a goal to do this for the veterans and other people. Talk about why. Here's how I'm going to do it. And now I got wrung out into all this. This took far longer, and I apologize. I mean, I think what they said is their questions and their concerns are legitimate. I'm glad they asked it. I just didn't think it would take this long. So I apologize, and I hope to be back to you after about an hour or so. All right. Bye.